Well, hi there. This is Joe Crow. How to structure and write one essay, one of those 40-minute type essay questions. I work for Central Texas College History Department, and you're one of my students. You're probably watching this video. So why essays? Well, essays allow college teachers to get inside a student's brain in a way that a multiple choice question cannot. When a student fills out an essay, usually what they're telling the instructor is they know that this question is significant because of something. And it's important because it reveals certain things. It gives meaning to things that a student is able to connect their lives, their experiences to the question. That eventually a student can let a professor know that there are various interpretations and a student knows how to locate them. So that's my warning sign there, that interpretations are always contestable and multiple. Just as long as the student can prove their point, they're okay. So ultimately what a student reveals when they write an essay is really how well they understand the material and also how well they think. And you can't really get at that with a multiple choice question. There's a problem, however. That problem has to do with that often there are great ideas, super ideas, even awesome ideas in a student's head, but when it comes to writing, it just doesn't come out. So that makes you look, well, kind of like a very famous 20th, 21st century cartoon icon. And we don't want that to happen. Do we? Really? Well, if you answer a question following this method, it's really formulaic. Really. Even if you're bad at writing, if you adhere to this formula that we're going to give you right now, you can gain a much better grade. Guaranteed. So here's how it looks. It's a 5-paragraph response. The first paragraph is your thesis. Then you're going to give the proof that supports your thesis, and usually 3 of them. So proof A, proof B, proof C. And then you're on to your conclusion, and you're done. So 5 paragraphs, that's it. The most important paragraph, guessed it, thesis, baby. Some instructors actually grade in a way that 50% of the score for the essay is dedicated to the thesis. And a good thesis is going to do 2 things. It's going to answer the question, the essay question, the prompt the professor gave you. It will answer that. The thesis will do that. And it's also going to supply the proofs that are forthcoming. So that's a good thesis. What about a great thesis? Well, a great thesis is going to answer the prompt, and it's going to supply the proof of the forthcoming in the forthcoming paragraphs, but it's going to add what we call window dressing. Little rhetorical devices that will take your thesis to the next level. So, let's see if we can do this. We have a question. Explain the relationship between the democratic restrictions embedded within the United States Constitution and the relative prosperity into which the said country enjoys. Rule number 1 is don't panic. Second, realize that there, like we said before, numerous responses to this, and maybe even an infinite number. And third, really what a professor wants to see is if you understand the material and how well you can connect concepts. Now, what is the concept? And you really have to know this before you move on. If you guessed stability equals prosperity, bam, you're on your way. This is a basic cause and effect question. With A, we're going to get B. Right? So once we know the question, we're going to, and not panic, we're going to brainstorm it. So I wrote down on scratch paper, I blitzkrieged a bunch of thoughts, 5, 6, 7, 8, or so. And then this is what I came up with. I cannot vote for the Senate in the original Constitution. I cannot vote or remove the Supreme Court justices. That's true today. The President appoints a Supreme Court justice. There's a bicameral House. So having a bill become a law is pretty tough. Congress, is reactionary, but the Senate is made so that it's not reactionary. There's a treaty ratification process that slows down any radical foreign policy changes. And the president has a veto on the Congress, so that if the Congress gets too radical, the president can put in a veto as well. All these things stabilize government. So, now I'm going to choose 3 out of this blitzkrieg that I know the best. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, I'll choose I cannot vote or remove the Supreme Court justice, treaty ratification process, and the presidential veto. All of these limit democracy, but they, quite maybe sort of create stability, which means, or maybe the economy will benefit from this. Now we're going to go to step 3, which is we're going to actually answer this question. So once again, here's the question. Explain the relationship between the democratic restrictions embedded in the U.S. Constitution and the relative prosperity to which. So what do I mean by answer the question? Write the answer down just as if you were answering. Yes. The relationship between the democratic restrictions embedded within the Constitution and the relative prosperity of the said country is one based on the concept of stability. That a stable government will aid in economic prosperity. So you answered. That's the beginning of your thesis. But you need to provide the proof in order to finish the thesis. So here's the proof in italics. By focusing on the Supreme Court, how foreign treaties are processed, and the power of the presidential veto, the causal link between the Constitution's non-democratic means and the country's relative stability will be revealed. That's a pretty good thesis. Well, what does this look at when we put it into that 5-paragraph formula? Remember this? All right, so paragraph A is going to be about the Supreme Court, and paragraph B is going to be about how foreign treaties are processed and ratified, and then paragraph C is going to be about the power of the presidential veto, and then we're going to write a conclusion. Let's do another question. Explain the role of progressives in attacking the radical immorality of the American way of life at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries. What tools did they use? Were they successful? How do we know? Who are the progressives of today? Again, don't panic. Second, know that there's a bunch of ways that you can answer this question. And third, that the professor really wants to see if you know and can make connections. Right? Okay. So this question is actually easier than the one in the first because it's asking really for 2 things. It's asking for a role, and it's asking for a list of tools. And it doesn't even matter if the tools that progressives use met with success. It's just asking for a list. So the hard part of the question goes on with who are the progressives of today. Well, that goes in the conclusion. So let's take a look at this again on scratch paper. You're going to blitzkrieg. So here I go. Progressives use novels, muckraking journalists, and newspapers. They used elections. They hired research bureaus and formed their own think tanks. They created specialized commissions and agencies. They created settlement houses, and they even lobbied and redressed Congress. These are 7 things that progressives did in attacking radical immorality. So I choose 3 of them. I choose novels, muckraking, and settlement houses. All of these are tools that progressives used. So I'm going to answer the question. Here's the question with the question mark. Now here's the answer. The role of progressives in attacking what they saw as radical immorality with the American way of life was the demand that government, municipal, state, or federal, fix the nation's many problems. But I need to provide the proof. Right? So by using novels, muckraking journalism, and settlement houses as tools to plead their case, progressives applied enormous pressures on government to effect the changes progressives sought. So we go to the formula, right? Thesis, proof A, proof B, proof C. Whoa, there you go. Novels. Muckraking journalism is going to be in paragraph B, settlement houses in paragraph C. Pretty simple, right? You can do this. Back to the thesis paragraph for just a bit. So we have a good thesis, okay? The relationship between the democratic restrictions, and then by focusing on this. But we need to make this good thesis great. This is a good thesis. It is. But it's not worth the full points. So let's take a look at how to make it great. We need rhetoric. And so rhetoric, there's hundreds of them. So I just pulled up 4 here. Quotes. We can use a quote. Insanitary housing, poisonous sewage, contaminated water, infant mortality, the spread of contagion were just some of the problems cities faced according to Jane Addams. We can start off with a question. What happens when so many problems infect a society and politicians not only seem incapable of solving them, but are part of the problem themselves? For statistics, 4 out of 5 dentists recommend progressivism, a great new revolutionary social movement that is guaranteed to heal your nation's problems. I'm being a little punchy there, but you know what I mean. Twist and turn. If problems seem so surmounting, then surmounting the problems becomes our individual responsibilities. Something a progressive would say. And it's a good start. So know that there's all sorts of different rhetorical tools that you can start with. Okay? So if I plug that in, what happens when so many problems affect the society? We get this brand new paragraph. In the late 19th and early 20th century, progressives saw their roles as one of attack, demanding that governments, municipal, state, and federal, fix the nation's alleged radical immorality. By using novels, muckraking journalism, and settlement houses as tools to plead their case, progressives applied enormous pressures on governments to effect the changes progressives sought. Hey, any questions? Oh, I'm not here to answer them. But I guess you can email me.